So this is a bit of an unscripted video about Bridget from Guilty Gear. Apologies about the very bland setup here. We have recently moved to a new apartment, and we haven't really set up our filming or streaming setup just yet properly. So it's kind of just awkward right now, where like we got nothing on the walls. We have a pride flag there, but that's about it. But yeah, so let's talk about Bridget from Guilty Gear, specifically the reveal from 2 nights ago of Bridget in Guilty Gear Strive. What happens in that story, how that follows the previous story of Bridget from Guilty Gear X2 or XX, depending on your region. Some misconceptions about it, what was added or not added in localization, all of that, because there's so much misinformation, there's so much bad faith arguments, Let's start with the very basics. We will be using the pronouns Bridget used at the time of the story we're talking about for the sake of this video. We will also use simplified, binary language regarding sex and gender, just to easily explain what's going on, okay? So let's start with Guilty Gear X2. So Bridget was born in a very religious town in England, cult-like town in England. It's a cult, who had a variety of superstitions and bad omen beliefs, including one about twins. They believed that if two male twins, or a set of male twins, were born, then that meant that it would bring down God's wrath and destruction and bad luck and horribleness on the village and everyone involved. So if two men were born, two male babies were born, then the youngest boy had to either be exiled from the village or killed. So Bridget's parents have two sons, but Bridget's parents are actually good people, and this is a constant throughout this story. By the way, Bridget loves her parents. That needs to be acknowledged. So what Bridget's parents do is they get around this by raising Bridget, the younger twin, as a girl, basically hiding from the village that Bridget was born male. And for the most part, during childhood, this is fine. She lives as a girl, she identifies as a girl, she's perfectly content with this. But of course, as she gets older, it becomes more convoluted and complicated because sex, and she is told by her parents what happened. She doesn't resent her parents for this. She doesn't harbor any ill will towards her parents for this. She loves her parents. That's very important. That's consistent in her bio. But she realizes two things. First, that the village and this religious doctrine they follow is awful, and something needs to be done about it. And also, her parents feel awful. Her parents regret giving Bridget a messed up upbringing, and it makes her parents feel bad. Like it hurts them a lot. Like they try to hide it, but Bridget can tell. So what Bridget decides to do is start presenting as a boy, without changing his actual aesthetical presentation, because he doesn't actually like masculine stuff. He goes out to become a successful bounty hunter. It's like, sure, look, like we're doing well, we're doing fine. There's the stigma about like male twins is bullshit, and to like make his parents proud. And that's where Guilty Gear X2 starts. And he does. He does end the stigma. He makes his parents proud, and it's great. It's wonderful. And throughout this, in the Japanese script, there's less gendering in general, because, third-person pronouns aren't used in the same gendered way in Japanese. So while Bridget does correct and state, like, hey, I'm a man, I'm a boy, I'm male here and there when it's brought up. It's not as constant as in the English version where it's constantly used like he, him, he, him, he, him. Like it's more about Bridget affirming that like, hey, look, the male twin isn't a fuck up, you know? It makes sense that people would see it and think like, oh, so Bridget is a cis boy who broke out of being raised as a girl. But that's not exactly what was going on. He was just trying to make his parents proud and to prove the village wrong about their superstition. So what Guilty Gear Strive does, it picks up years after this, with Bridget trying to figure out their own happiness. And it starts with them like being like, oh yeah, like I'm a boy, like hey, you know me, Bridget, the boy who dresses like a girl.
日を改めるとするよ、お嬢ちゃん。
うちは男です。いろいろあって女の子の格好をしてるだけで。
But then like eventually getting the strength to be like, I'm a girl, okay? Like I'm a girl.
未来の自分が後悔しないようよく考えることです。
未来の自分ですか。でもそれで後悔したらどうしよう。
先は長いんだ。転び方の一つでも覚えたらどうだ。
差し伸べる手もここにあります。
うち怖くて逃げてたのはやめたいです。ここでごまかしちゃったら後悔するから。だからこれから何があっても自分には嘘つきません。お二人ともありがとうございます。
なあ、元気でな、お嬢ちゃん。いや、お坊ちゃんか？
お嬢ちゃんでいいですよ。うちは女の子ですから。
And that's the happy ending of Strive. It's about how her parents never actually fucked up. Her parents weren't never the problem here. Her having tried to prove something, her doing something for someone else, that led her on the path of being a man. But now that she's finding herself, she realizes that she was perfectly happy as a girl, and she's happier now being back out as a girl. And this makes sense. This makes sense. Like people have tried to say that this is grooming, which that's not what grooming is for starters. If you think Bridget identifying as a girl because she was raised as a girl despite being male, like assigned male at birth, if you think that's grooming, then every cis person ever is being groomed into being a cis person. You can't just have a double standard for trans people here. But that's basically the story so far. So Bridget, raised as a girl, found out she was assigned male, started behaving like a man, presenting as a man for the sake of others, finished the goal that she set out to do, tried to find a new goal, tried to find happiness in herself, realized, hey, I'm a girl. That's the story of Bridget. And it's actually really cool because it matches up with actual trans people. Like most trans people go through an exploration period, or most trans people do try to present as a different gender first, either by conformity or by just exploration, and then before landing on the gender that they are. And of course, in the case of Bridget, in the 20 years that has passed since X2 and Strive, you basically have a ton of people who loved Bridget in 2002, who was not yet out as trans, and during these 20 years have come out as trans, and now see Bridget having shared that entire narrative with them. That's beautiful. So, what about the localization? Because some people have claimed that this was added in localization and wasn't in the original Japanese. That's not true, it is. The final line about Bridget's gender identity in Japanese is literally onanoko desu kara, which is I'm a girl. And that's how it translated into English. And people have pointed to like the bio on the website that says something like raised to be a young maiden, Bridget was a boy, or Bridget, like something like that. That's talking about Bridget being born male. It doesn't talk about her current gender identity. it's the same way in the English bio, actually, but people are trying to use this to prove, like, look, the Japanese bio says that Bridget is a boy, but the English one doesn't. Like, no, they're both talking about the male twin thing. They're not talking about Bridget's current identity. The Japanese bio still ends with Bridget looking out to find her own happiness because she didn't find happiness being a male bounty hunter. That's still in the Japanese bio. So yeah, Bridget is trans in Japanese. In English, it was not added in localization. It doesn't contradict the past story. The past story was about making her parents happy and showing the village wrong. It wasn't about her identifying as a boy because she wanted to be a boy. And Strive is all about people finding their new true identities. And personally, we love it. We love it. We've been playing Guilty Gear, since the PS2 era. We haven't played it for a long time because we don't play fighting games much. But this is probably going to get us back into Guilty Gear because we love Bridget. We've always loved Bridget. And we think the backlash towards this is less about, let boys be feminine, because there's not a lack of feminine men in Japanese media. But like, we think it's more that people have spent 20 years using Bridget as like the flag character, the key character of like, femboys and traps are not trans people. They're different things. But what people need to understand is that, first off, when it comes to femboy, that term, it's a pretty new term. Femboy and otokonoko and yoso, which are all terms that gets used for Bridget, they include trans women and non-binary people. They always have. The otokonoko scene, if you ever read the memoir of Oshimakaru, who he was the person that made otokonoko like a big, popular, and well-known thing. He talks in detail about how important trans women in particular have been for the otokonoko scene, and how many of them are trans people, and it's good stuff. We talked about that in a video last year during the build-up to Transgender Day of Remembrance, but there's also, if you ever follow the otokonoko or yoso grab your model scene, be it online or elsewhere, where you can check out porn for that matter, you will find a lot of Japanese trans women and non-binary people, ex-gender people. You will see the MTF and the MTX stuff everywhere. And of course, in the West, femboy is used by trans women all the time. I mean, you can just go on Grindr and see that. Go on Grindr, pick the trans tribe, and just see how many femboys there are trans women. It's like half, if not more. And yes, we are speaking from experience. Her being trans doesn't actually negate that. You can identify with her as much as you want to. We get it if you really like the idea of feminine men, but there are plenty of feminine men. And in Bridget's case, being a man was not something she strived to be for the sake of herself. So it's not against her character to be a trans woman. And it's not added in localization. It's in the Japanese original. When we get our streaming setup done and we can afford buying games, we will probably stream some Guilty Gear Strive and getting to learn Bridget, because oh my god, she looks amazing. We're so happy for her. That walk cycle, damn. But we just want to put out this little video. Support us on Patreon if you want to, or Coffee. We have an Etsy store as well if you wanna get a silly t-shirt or something. There might be a stream later this week for the Final Fantasy 14 live letter. See ya.